that's a ride. Girl, you left my stomach in a knot. Took my lighter and you burned the bridge. Thought you was a rider. No, you're just an idol. You got me feeling like Big Sean in this 5, 4, 3, 2. I deserve a minute. Wait a minute. Gotta get up and over. Regain my composure. No longer my lover. Finally finished and you did it. Girl, you really showed me. Think with your heart, don't think with your body. Clever. Sorry not sorry, sorry not Justin Timberlake, write me a river. Lately I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to turn to. Everything was green light, now we got the red. Could've had somebody else, chose you instead. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. You tried to convince me it was all in my head, and I felt like it's that you was me instead. Hey, I wanted to rock with you, roll with you. Said you was my baby girl, then you left me too. Everything was kosher, perfect like a poster. Then I got word that you wanna lead a picture. Off with somebody else, off with the jerk. With the shame on me, I really thought that it could work. Off with somebody else, off with the loser. Shame on me, I really thought we had a... Lately I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to turn to. Everything was green light, now we got the red. Could've had somebody else, chose you instead. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. Everything was green light, now we got the red. Could've had somebody else, chose you instead. It's okay, it's okay. Yeah, lately I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to turn to. Everything was green light, now we got the red. Could've had somebody else, chose you instead. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. Got up in the morning, took a shot, that's a rock. Girl, you left my stomach in a knot. Took my lighter and you burned the bridge. Thought you was a rider. No, you're just an idol. You got me feeling like Big Sean in this 5, 4, 3, 2. I deserve a minute. Wait a minute. Gotta get up and over. Regain my composure. No longer my lover. Finally finished and you did it. Girl, you really showed me. Think with your heart, don't think with your body. Clever. Sorry not sorry, sorry not Justin Timberlake, write me a river. Lately I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to turn to. Everything was green light, now we got the red. Could've had somebody else, chose you instead. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. You tried to convince me it was all in my head, and I felt like it's that you was me instead. Hey, I wanted to rock with you, roll with you. Said you was my baby girl, then you left me too. Everything was kosher, perfect like a poster. Then I got word that you wanna lead a picture. Off with somebody else, off with the jerk. With the shame on me, I really thought that it could work. Off with somebody else, off with the loser. Shame on me, I really thought we had a... Lately I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to turn to. Everything was green light, now we got the red. Could've had somebody else, chose you instead. I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. Everything was green light, now we got the red. Could've had somebody else, chose you instead. It's okay, it's okay. Yeah. Lately I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. I be having conversations with myself cause I
Yes, Yahsonn, go ahead.
Global greetings. Welcome to another edition of DeTopiks. I want to say good evening, Sinkits. I want to say good evening, Mavis. I want to say good evening to Wally, as we call it, and Layamiga, the original name of our indigenous people and our ancestors. At least two of the words that have been left back with us, that we could hold on to, and I think we should hold on to. I want to say good evening to the rest of the folks within the region. I want to say good evening to the folks wherever you are around the world, whether you're in America, you're in China, you're in Taiwan, you're in Israel, you're in Palestine, wherever you are locked into another edition of DeTopiks. I want to say good evening to my other host, Azard Bankie, and want to say a special good evening to our guest this evening, Mr. Azard Gumbs, Deputy Leader of the People's Action Movement and representative, or at least presenting himself as the representative for, I think, his constituency 4.
Yes, the People's Action Movement for constituency number 4.
4, right. So good evening, welcome to Real Entertainment Network. Good evening to the topics. Welcome to the topics. And I want to tell the folks to be sure to log on to our Facebook channel, subscribe to our YouTube platform, and we are also streamed on Twitch TV simultaneously. So, you can log in and share your views. We do pay attention to the comments on the walls. And so please, feel free to share your comments and put your questions in. But we would give Mr. Gumbs an opportunity first to eventually make his opening remarks, and we would probably have a few questions for him, and then we would open the platform. Usually we have the numbers sliding across the screen. The numbers to call in would be 1-869-662-7196. That's 1-869-662-7196 or 1-869-665-8459. Those are the numbers to call in if you want to be a part of the program. So, Bankie, greetings. Welcome to another edition of DeTopiks.
Yahsonn, greetings to you and greetings to our guests. Azad, how are you doing? And greetings to the folks here in Oli and Layamiga. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in on this another Friday evening. This is a special switch over, as usually Fridays will be the Everything Agriculture. So this week we have special guests who will choose to switch it around and put Everything Agriculture on the Tuesday and choose to this one because of the topics will be more convenient for Azad in a sense. So everything really matched with the theme. So appreciate you guys listening, and not forgetting the folks over in Sabre, Statia, the US Virgin Islands, also the BPI, not forgetting the folks over in Montserrat, Antigua and Barbuda, and the folks over in Bermuda. We have folks on throughout. Plus, coming up is this next week is Caribbean Week of Activities, so we'll have people tuning in and folks coming here and saying kids for a whole week pack of activities, and plus we have the Agriculture Festival and Marine Festival coming up, usually called Open Day, so that will be a big event from the Thursday to the Friday, and the Caribbean Week activity will be at the Marriott, so you just have to register. It's free, and you learn a lot of different stuff that's going on throughout the Caribbean. Also, let me say good evening to the folks in the diaspora, North America, from the Florida Keys all up to Maine, the folks over in Europe, England, Asia, Africa, wherever you're to the sound of my voice. Greatly appreciate the guys tuning in, whichever is appropriate. Good morning, good afternoon. Listening, we're going to have a good show this evening, and looking forward for the discussion. Remember, share the link, and if you also want to take part and talk to advertise your business, you just contact any one of us, and I will work out a very good price for you guys. So we're going to get right into it. Azad, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening. I am good, just a bit tired. There's been a long day.
Yes.
I attended a funeral service for one of my constituents just this afternoon, and then I marched in the streets of Bastille. as you know, Bankie, you were there as well. Basically,
Yes.
speaking on behalf of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, for what I think, the Labour administration has been doing a terrible job at representing the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and a poor performance when it comes to the upliftment of our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
So, who is Azard Gumbs? Can you let the listeners and viewing audience know who is Azard Gumbs? We can start up with that.
Well, I am a man who is dedicated to service. At a very young age, I was a member of the St. Kitts National Youth Parliament Association. I have served as a member for up to 14 years. The Youth Parliament Association, for those persons who are not aware, it is a organization of young people between the ages of 12 to 30 years old, persons who are geared towards service, persons who are geared towards nation building and activities. I served as the president of the St. Kitts National Youth Parliament Association on my return here from school, whereby I would have assisted a number of young people, shaped them in the way, national debate. I would have assisted them in terms of honing their leadership skills and also their public speaking abilities. I have always been one who has been dedicated to service. Growing up in Old Road, I was a member, well, still a member of the Methodist Church in Old Road. I was very active in church at a young age. I try to be as active as I can in various organizations, which I'm a part. When I was at university, KFL campus, I served as the president of the St. Kitts Nevis Students Association. While a law student, I also served as president of the UE KFL Law Society, and I served as a guild counselor on the Guild of Students at the university campus. I have had a long history of service whereby I have spoken on issues. I remember at university, I spoke on behalf of my fellow colleagues, whether it be student issues like, at one point in time there was not a lecturer who was showing up, and a lot of students were frustrated, and I would have held and organized an activity whereby there was dialogue between the student population and that said lecturer. I have always been, in my view, someone who has advocated on the behalf of others. Currently, I'm an attorney at law where I represent persons. So it is my intention now not to just represent persons in the courtroom, on the streets, but also in Parliament, to be the representative of constituency number 4 and to take St. Kitts and Nevis to higher heights.
Well, that's a handful, Azad. I mean, it shows that you've really been involved in what's going on within the community. So, what inspired you to really get involved into, being to elected politics, and why the People's Action Movement?
Well, politics, I would say that, as I have indicated before, I served as a member of the St. Kitts National Youth Parliament Association. I recall, while as a young member at the age of 14, there were persons who were older than me who were very young advocates, persons who were debated in the National Assembly. I recall persons like Jeffrey Hanley, who was one of the founding fathers of the Youth Parliament Association. I would have been a part of the organization with persons like Jacqueline Bryant, Azila Clark, Jehan Williams, Fadil Aimo, and Creos Freeman, those sort of persons, persons who would have been older than me at the time, but persons who I would have seen debated, seen around and be a part of nation building activities, and persons who I remember when I was younger, I was a bit, I never used to talk as much, but that spirit of service grew within me, and I have since then been a voice for persons. I remember at one point in time now, Bankie, I hosted a program, the Youth Express on the Steps, whereby it was a group of young persons speaking about issues on ZIZ TV. We spoke about so many things affecting young people. So I have always been an advocate. Why politics? I see politics as an avenue whereby we could I could better assist the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. There are different ways in which you can assist the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, but I think having a seat at the table in cabinet, having a seat in parliament would assist me in shaping laws and policies that would assist the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to a greater extent. It is my desire to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I believe leadership is service, and so that is why I've put forward myself as a leader, a servant leader to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Why the People's Action Movement? At a young age, I had been involved from the outside. I've been to political meetings. My father is a strong supporter of the People's Action Movement. And so when I was younger, he would go to these meetings. I would go with him as well or listen on the radio. I was keen on the issues of the day. I highly respect the accomplishments of Sir Kennedy and P.A.M during the 1980s. To this day, I believe that the People's Action Movement is the architect of a modern St. Kitts and Nevis. I believe the People's Action Movement is a party that puts people first, and I believe the People's Action Movement is a party that is people-centered. It is focused on collaboration with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and so I could not see myself in any other party but the People's Action Movement.
This September gone, the 19th, have bring us to 42 years of independence, and the People's Action Movement have a big part to play in that. I mean, from one as a deputy leader, as a young person, and for the 42nd, how that inspire you and being now as a leader? How do you feel about that? And from what P.A.M have brought to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, Bankie, I am extremely proud. I'm extremely proud to be a member of the People's Action Movement. I'm extremely proud to be the deputy leader of the People's Action Movement. I am just 36 years old. And so when we had our first independence, I was not around. I had not been around for independence until 6 years after, in 1989. But I have read, I have learned the history, and I know that the People's Action Movement has been the party instrumental to take us to independence. Of course, the Labour administration attempted not once but twice, but it wasn't until the People's Action Movement taking office in 1980 with the collaboration of the NRP, the then Sir Simeon Daniel and Sir Kennedy Simmons, that St. Kitts and Nevis ushered in independence together as one nation. I am extremely proud to serve as the deputy political leader of P.A.M at this point in time, because I believe that the People's Action Movement is a party that always puts people first. The election is coming up, and I think that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis now know that the only party that cares for them is the People's Action Movement. They have given the Labour Party a try, and the Labour Party continue to fail the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. The Labour Party continue to put their own agenda above the needs of the people. And at this point in time, the people are disappointed. It has been disappointment after disappointment. And persons are looking forward to see the People's Action Movement take the reins and take leadership in this country once again. And I am proud to be a candidate in the upcoming election. I'm proud to be a member of the People's Action Movement, a candidate of the People's Action Movement. And I do hope that when the election is called, it is my desire to serve the people as its next representative for constituency number 4.
Yes, sir.
Well, I am loving the confidence I'm hearing here from Mr. Gumbs, you know. And I guess this is the level of confidence that one need moving forward and seeking to put themselves in that position. I love the historical background of the People's Action Movement and the explanation for our independence moving into independence. As the representative before I get into that, right? I realized that you and Bankie went to the march earlier on, so I don't want to follow on yet. I want to get a little bit of response and feedback from that, because one, I didn't see much, so to speak, on social media. I was expecting to see maybe some streaming and so on, but I didn't see much of that. So let me get a little bit of feedback from Bankie, and then I'll get back to you, Mr. Gums, in a bit. Bankie,
no problem. No problem.
I heard Mr. Gums say that he made a speech, I think, at the march, right? You actually made a speech to Mr. Gums, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So Bankie, how about you? You were able to make a speech, or you just was a part of the march? And give you a little synopsis, because I know generally when you go to an event, you mark hard, and so let us get your feedback from your presence there. Your mic on mute. Your mic on mute. Your mic is on
Yes,
mute.
give thanks for that. Yeah, give thanks for that. Well, my observation today, I mean, for the march, I make sure show up early where I can assist in a sense like that. Because what I've learned over the years, not, even though people might not show up, I might have a large crowd or I have a small crowd. One somebody can make a difference. So what I see today is going to Bastille in a sense that the crowd that was in town and that the people come to support. You might not have 1,000 people or 500 people, but what you have is people standing in solidarity from across the political line and just regular people, citizens from across the street, from the most things is just joining in to start to show what they're not against when it comes to development, healthcare, agriculture, and those sort of stuff within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So I would say the march was a success. I mean, everything went smooth. The people stand up and they record, and so which means people standing up and recording, it means they were posting this stuff too. You see what I mean? So which means is not, you might see, and then I get feedback from people. They say they'll share stuff on my status, and before coming over there, a lot of people reach out to me, let me know they're standing in solidarity and stuff like that. So all was the environment that we live in, because what I've realized is that unless a preacher or a politician leading your hand, especially the masses, are encouraged to come out, don't not just come out on their own, and we need to get out of that kind of shell. You got to start. I'm marching because I have my last youth is 5 years old. My first youth is 27. She's married, which means I'm only 48. You see what I mean? We are still young people. And I shouldn't be coming here having to speak about what I finished with school over 30 plus years ago, over 32 years ago. I shouldn't be having this conversation about fair share and health care and all this different agriculture. I would have figured this time, see, every neighbors and see going to be the beacon of the whole Caribbean, but it's an example of not having all these large developments and you still don't have a proper hospital in a sense like that, and then dialysis, not in neighbors. And I know so much young people who younger than me have died when it comes to healthcare and these different stuff, and yet you still have a hospital that is there for more than 8 years away, can't even be finished. So what I see today, I must say, just because the people come out and support, if it is one somebody, it is a success, because we're living in an age of technology and social media. So a large crowd, it sends that people might have and say, well, everybody went and whatever. It don't work like that in these times now. You see what I mean? You can realize we're here, we don't know who is listening to us. So when somebody share, and then I share the videos to different people all in the US and stuff like that in different states. So you understand where I'm coming from, people in Antigua. So it's just not about Nevis or St. Kitts. The outside world is watching. And when the outside world is, we're living in a very small world. So I must give kudos to Marisho and all those who organizing the march, and all those who came out and support them, who came out from St. Kitts, from Nevis, sorry for that, from the different party line and stuff like that. But for Yahsonn, for me, I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay, all right.
And that's a good mark. There is always room for improvement.
And I know you mark hard, So if you get an 8 out of 10, you know what I mean, that's a good mark still. Very, very good. Now for transparency, I want the public to also know that Bankie is putting himself up as the running representative for St. Paul. So Bankie is also an independent candidate. I don't know if Mr. Gumbs is aware of that. But,
no, I wasn't. Now I know.
Yeah, but well, I have to register. I guess I want to have my own shirt. I want to have all inclusive, and I still want to register where I support anyone that is have the right intention, but I still want to register where I have my own symbol or whatever it is like that. But as an independent and who are all like so young man like you, definitely I give my support to openly, because in time you really have to give each. You can never give no person who honestly give them a chance, and that is very important to
Yes.
me. So give a chance, and then if you see what you do, then say, you know what, as you failed us, time to move on, give just a chance. If I fail, it's time to give somebody a chance. That is what happened, because what I'm saying now, anything better, anything will do, I will need genuine people to start to rise up as independent. If the case all about it's country above self, not self above country. Yes.
Yes, Banky.
So we have two potential, you know, elected officials in the future here on the platform with us. One representing the People's Action Movement and one being an independent candidate. So I'm putting that into perspective. I didn't realize that you were not aware of that, Mr. Gumbs, but
Yes.
Bankie would have made that clear since maybe about a year ago, maybe even more, that he has that intention to run in St. Paul's, where he's from originally. Um, Now, Banky, I'm going to shift course a little bit, and I'm going to Mr. Gumbs now. As you spoke about
Yes.
the the rally and so on, I know one of the things that would have, um, start to help to push this march even forward would have been there were a number of issues prior, but the SSC issue, um, which is one of the most topical things right now. What is Mr. Gumbs' view on the SSZ, and if you were to be the next prime minister? Because we have to be realistic. The way how our government operates, we don't vote for a prime minister. You're elected, and if your party, and or the governor general see that you have the majority of the view, you can be, even though you have a leader. If your leader doesn't win and you win your seat, you stand the chance of being the next prime minister, right? So anyway, what would you do? What would Mr. Gumbs do as the prime minister in terms of the SSC, based on your views and your opinion at this point?
Well, let me say first and foremost that our party has crafted its own position on it, just that it has not yet shared that position. I don't want to preempt the leader as it relates to the position of the party. All I would say on that matter that land is very important to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and any issue relating to the land should be done or taken care of or handled with the utmost care. We realize that the people of Nevis have had a history of land ownership that has not been the same for the people of St. Kitts. Realize that many of our lands were in the planter class society. Um, we realize that Bradshaw would have fought for those lands to be back in the hands of persons, and we realize that Sir Kennedy Simmons would have paid for those lands so it could be back in the hands of the citizens. And so, when it comes to development, I am not against the development of our country, but I am for the persons, I am for the locals, I am for our citizens, to ensure that our citizens have access to lands in the future, to make sure that whatever lands we use, whatever lands are, I am more, let me say this, I am more for leasing of land than the grand purchase of land. But as it relates to legislation, because our party will be putting out a position shortly, I don't want to really preempt that position. But I'll say this, when it comes to land and it comes to that act, I believe that the Prime Minister and this Labour administration should have been more forthcoming when it comes to the information. Rather than have the act passed in Parliament, you see the controversy now. I think more discussion should have been had. What they're doing now, they should have been doing before. This is a government that campaigned on transparency. And we see that once they're in office, and they're in office now, that everything is opaque, it's dark, we don't know what's going on. They pass legislation, and only after there's a backlash that they try to inform the people about what the legislation is about. Such a legislation, given the ramification, given the power of the Prime Minister, because we realize that when it comes to this legislation, the Prime Minister has a great amount of power, a great amount of discretion. And even though the discretion lies within him with some consultation with the Premier of Nevis, he must understand that he is a custodian, or he is, whatever power is given to him on trust by the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. You understand? So whatever discretion or discretionary powers he has in the act, he must act always in the best interest of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So again, our party has not made clear that position. The position is being crafted. I had insight of it. I had discussions with it, and I want to wait until our party and leader makes her announcement as relates to that.
Fair enough. Fair enough, and I respect that position. Now, in relation to Nevis, we would have seen in the past that the People's Action Movement would have teamed up and collaborated, so to speak, with the Concerned Citizens Movement in the last election. Would have been very much involved in the team unity construct. We are looking forward to an election in the next, let's say, year and a half. What is, well, let me put it this way. Historically, we have seen over the years that there is, in most times, a need for collaboration, whether it's with P.A.M, because there would have been that collaboration with P.A.M and NRP, as you would have mentioned, in relation to the independence, and I just spoke of the relationship between P.A.M CCM. In recent times, we have not necessarily seen or hear of that sort of collaboration since the breakdown of the team unity construct, so to speak. So, elections coming, what says P.A.M and Mr. Gumbs in relation to a collaboration with the Concerned Citizens Movement, if that needs become arises?
Well, based on the statement of our leader has indicated that we are open to collaboration and partnership once there is mutual trust and understanding between the parties. Of course, our party at this point in time is focusing on ensuring that the People's Action Movement is in the best position to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So far, we've had candidates announced, myself, Nudbe and Grier. And so what we are doing, we're rebuilding the party. We understand that the last general election was an election like no other. Our party would have suffered a loss, a big loss. You saw that the number of votes that we received would have been almost half of what we usually receive. We realized too that the election was a snap election. We were in coalition with another party or parties, and as a result of disagreements, the coalition came to an end. There were some persons who were disappointed in which the coalition came to an end. But the leader of our party has indicated that the People's Action Movement is open to collaboration once there is mutual understanding and mutual respect. You've seen in the past, Tafari and also Bankie, both have seen in the past where the People's Action Movement has partnered with the NRP, the People's Action Movement has partnered with the CCM, the People's Action Movement has even partnered with the PLP. And we are a party that puts the people of St. Kitts and Nevis first and foremost. We are hoping that we'll be able to get the number of seats necessary to form government. But if a cooperation and mutual understanding is necessary to get there, we must be a partnership that is people-focused, a partnership that aligns with our values and principles, and one that will push St. Kitts and Nevis forward. I can't hear you.
Yes, on your mic. Yes, on your mic. Your mic.
Sorry, my bad. Yes, quite fair response. Okay, now Nevis. We still on Nevis. At present, the SSZ is one of the most topical conversations. However, there is the issue of the fair share that is and has always been an issue between St. Kitts and Nevis. What is your position on the fair share issue? You can take it from whichever angle you want to. Whether you want to go historically and deal with it, or if you just want to address it from what is happening at present, where the World Bank would have already presented, whatever, and we're still waiting for it from a public standpoint and so on. So wherever you want to start with it, I'm leaving it open to you.
Well, as it relates to the fair share, of course, we've heard that. That was one of the statements or one of the reasons why the Honorable Matt Brandy Premier would have indicated his dissatisfaction with the former Team Unity administration and the PLP. Of course, there have been critics as it relates to that, whether or not Nevis, with Labour in power, has received that fair share. I believe that Nevis is entitled to whatever fair share is outlined by our constitution as it relates to the division. We know that St. Kitts is a bigger island. It has almost 2/3 and Nevis 1/3. I have no difficulty giving Nevis what is due to Nevis. I have family members, some of my roots are from Nevis as well. I have good colleagues in Nevis. I have no animosity towards the people of Nevis. In fact, I believe that St. Kitts and Nevis is better together than separated. And if I am part of a government, I would like to work with the people of Nevis, whoever the people of Nevis choose to be their representative, to push not only St. Kitts, but to push Nevis together. I believe that we're stronger together. And like my forefathers, and like my former Prime Minister, Sir Kennedy Simmons, I would hope to see St. Kitts and Nevis going from strength to strength, and there's collaboration between the two islands. And of course, I look forward to see the World Bank report that the Prime Minister would have received from the World Bank and yet not shared with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay, great response. I will take.
And I must say, I thought tonight we were going to talk about agriculture, so none of these questions I have been prepared for. But nevertheless, I am always open to discussion and always open to any questions, because I like to tell persons that I am an open book. I am someone who really, I believe in honesty, I believe in transparency, and so my responses are from my heart, they're from my belief, and they will always be similar, because there's no ill intention and there's no hidden agenda behind my desire to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. We will have a number of questions, and we will get around to agriculture. I am just seeking to get on some of the topics, because this tonight, what we did, usually on Friday nights we do everything agriculture, but we did everything agriculture on Tuesday, because we noted that we would have had you, who's a politician, on, and so we shifted and did the topics tonight, where we can get into a number of topics, including agriculture. So we will get to agriculture.
Safari, I am not disappointed. I am not disappointed. I do love the questions. It keeps me on my feet, and it really shares my perspective to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis on issues of great concern to them.
And like I said, you are running, Bankie is running, and any one of you can be the Prime Minister if you all win, because based on our system, you can become the Prime Minister. And so you being in that position, you would have to really, be in a position to respond to some of these issues, because these are issues that, the people face on a day-to-day basis. But I'm going to give you a minute, because you do take the time out to respond to some of the questions, comments on the Facebook wall and the YouTube wall and so on. And so we're going to go through some of them. So I should have no feedback now. Okay, vote for Chat and Daniel. Bankie, please assert that you are a candidate in the next election, just as Azard Gumbs is. Thanks. It is why Yahsonn put the question to you first, but about the match today. Burby Jones, great job today, guys. Very proud of the organizers and the people that turned out. Keep the pressure. Keep on protesting against corrupt SSZ Law. and the corrupt gangsters we call politicians. Sorry, but can anything be done about the crickets in the background? It's becoming annoying. Azard was supposed to give us something. How long will P.A.M take to make this announcement? I think this is in relation to the question in terms of the statement for the SSZ. I think that's the question that is being asked in that relation, and we should have had the leader. Another comment is we should have had the leader if Azard is just going to echo, meaning that I guess you're not going to be able to respond because you have to wait on the leader, so to speak. We see some comments here on the Facebook wall. Says P.A.M was recklessly against independence when they were in opposition in the 1970s until they got into office and used independence to give us a most horrible constitution that was designed to keep them in office, not propel the country forward. Okay, somebody said you wouldn't hear anything good about SKN from him. Zeke Percival, so true. He was not born before independence, but he went on social media to stream hatred against Robert Llewellyn Bratcher, our first national hero, and what would have been his 109th birthday. So sad. He's a true P.A.M. Okay, so these are just some of the comments that's going on. May Lord make sure you are in politics for the people and not to fatten your pockets. Please share your money with constituency number 6. And these are just some of the comments so far as we continue our conversation, and we really try to make it our business to give the folks who comment on the wall an opportunity to be a part of the discussion, because in some cases, if we don't, it would be like us here talking to ourselves. And so we really appreciate the exchanges and the people who do call in and or make their comments on the Facebook wall and or the YouTube platform. So Bankie, anything in response to any of the comments, and or Mr. Gumbs, any response to any of the comments, any that you will want to address?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, so I think I had some technical difficulty just a while ago. I had to switch from my tablet to my phone. I'm not sure what happened. I did listen to what the questions were. I mean, of course, if the party leader has a position and I'm representing the party, of course, I will have to echo what the party leader says. That is how it goes in terms of...
Your camera in the best, Azad. Your camera kind of like a light is shining in your face.
Yes.
So, like behind you, above you. Yeah.
Yes. Hold on. You could see me better?
Much better. Yeah, much better.
Okay.
Could be better, but
okay.
Yeah, it's a little.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So as I was saying, if the party leader makes gives a position on behalf of the party, and I as the deputy cannot go against that. You understand? So that comment that you should have had the leader, I don't understand that comment. But I do understand that some persons might not understand in which things are to be done. But go ahead.
Yes, Bankie. Any comment in response to any of the things that were shared on the Facebook wall in the meantime?
Well, I know someone mentioned about with independence and P.A.M, because you see the history of independence had a lot to do post-independence in a sense, because it's like a batch and then they come up with P.A.M and Labour and after different articles because there was different debates. So I don't have the full history in a sense like that. So when people speak and say P.A.M did this and P.A.M did that, I can't really just say yes in a sense like that. But what I want Azad to do is to give a brief oversight of what are some of the successes that he see leading up to this point as a young person under the leadership of P.A.M in a sense when it comes to healthcare and infrastructure and schools and stuff like that development, because our party had to contribute something, and we all got to realize these things, and that they always see the negative because we're still human and we carry a lot of emotions. But in a government that goes into power and existence, don't do nothing. Oh, they never did this, never did nothing, that never did nothing. But really and truly, they must do something that way all citizens have to benefit. So sometimes we have to outweigh the good and the bad, which should be more good. You don't really want any bad. So as I wanted to expound on some of the achievement over the years that you see that P.A.M have put forth when it comes to development of the island.
Okay, so Bankie, thank you. One accomplishment was getting St. Kitts and Nevis to independence as a state together, two islands, one paradise. You recognize that there were tensions between the Nevisians and the Bratchell-led administration prior to independence, and that the UK had indicated to St. Kitts and Nevis that after independence, you guys, if things happen like it's happening now, Nevis would have an opportunity to go and succeed from St. Kitts 18 months after. We see with the coalition between St. Kitts and Nevis, the People's Action Movement and the NRP. There was collaboration. You realize that St. Kitts and Nevis is still together after 42 years. So one of the accomplishments is to ensure, one of the accomplishments by the People's Action Movement is having, St. Kitts and Nevis together as one federation to this date. The People's Action Movement also abolished personal income tax. That was something that was keeping back persons, business communities with low corporate tax. The abolishment of personal income tax meant that more monies would flow in the hands of citizens. Citizens would have greater spending power. And so that is something that even up to this day, persons have benefited from. You compare St. Kitts and Nevis to countries like Jamaica and other Caribbean countries, and a large amount of their salary comes out from personal income tax. We don't have the same burden as our Caribbean counterparts. We have the luxury of having majority of our salary to ourselves. In addition to that, the People's Action Movement has always been a party that is geared towards the development of the private sector, ensuring that entrepreneurs are given the necessary tools and skills to ensure their success. We believe in a small government whereby the private sector is the engine of our economy, because you realize when the government is a large wage distributor, that you don't get the full benefit of a labor force that is independent from government and able to make citizens independent from government as well. You want to have citizens whereby they succeed outside of government, so they don't feel as though they are stifled in terms of their creativity or growth. And so you realize that when persons are independent, they're able to create their own businesses, they're able to make their own monies, they're less dependent on government and more concerned about how the economy is run, more concerned about the civil society, more concerned about the financial aspect of our economy, because if the economy grows, they grow as well. The People's Action Movement, infrastructure-wise, a lot of the sporting facilities that you see around St. Kitts and Nevis was a result of the People's Action Movement. The construction, where we see CFBC now, the People's Action Movement was instrumental in that. We see Port Zante that we benefit from now, the Bird Rock Deepwater Port, the People's Action Movement instrumental in that as well. We look at the Sir Kennedy Simmons Highway. A lot of persons at the point in time said that we would have been a highway to nowhere. And under the People's Action Movement, we were able to unlock the treasures of the Southeast Peninsula for common citizens. You and I have the benefit of traveling over by the Southeast Peninsula whenever we want, because of a People's Action Movement-led government, led by Sir Kennedy Simmons, a visionary leader. We look at maternity leave for women. because of the People's Action Movement, women now have 13-week maternity leave. And so that was not there before. We look at the issue of inheritance. Because of the People's Action Movement, children who are born outside of wedlock could inherit their father's estate. That wasn't something that was done previous to People's Action Movement. We look at the CBI that accounts for about 70% of our GDP. That was the brainchild of the People's Action Movement in the 1980s, 1984 to be exact. And so when you look at school meals, when you look at the self-program, People's Action Movement. And so I like to say, and I've said it more than once on numerous occasions, that the People's Action Movement is the architect of a modern St. Kitts and Nevis. Much of what we are benefiting now from has been a result of the fruits of the People's Action Movement. And so, again, that is one reason why I am proud to be a P.A.M. and why many persons are proud to be members of the People's Action Movement, and why so many persons are seeking for the People's Action Movement to return to office.
Yahsonn?
Yes, I love that explanation from Mr. Gumbs, and it really gives us a little synopsis of some of what was done by the People's Action Movement. I see somebody here saying that the Deepwater Port was built by Labour, and all they left at okay, well, I can't see the rest of the comment, but yes. So it's important for us to get the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I'm happy that you kind of.
Sorry, even the sugar lands that some Labour supporters may say, Bradshaw got the sugar lands. It was Kennedy Simmons who actually settled and paid for those sugar lands. The matter had been in court when it comes to the sugar lands, and it had been tied up in court, and it was Sir Kennedy Simmons under the People's Action Movement that actually paid for those sugar lands that is now undisputed. There's no settled the debt and settled whatever needed to be settled so we can have the lands. And so that is why you now see that so many citizens are concerned about, as you said, the SSZ, because land has been something sacred to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
So no, Mr. Gumbs, right? When I listen to what you are here saying, and this is why I guess it's important for us to have these kind of conversations in terms of the history and history even prior to independence, and early independence and what led to independence and so on. Because a lot of people who are even our age, I would have been born prior to independence, but I would have been pretty young. So a lot of things I might not have been aware of or would have been paying attention to at that age in my life. I probably might have been 5, 6, 6, 7, somebody about, like at that age you're not really studying politics and things like that. But as you get older, you learn. So there's a lot of people who don't know a lot of this, and when they do get an opportunity to hear things like this, it kind of helps to put things into perspective for many, and at the same time leaves room for a lot of questions, because here is it, you're talking about Bradshaw, and when we go back into history, that we were enslaved by the Europeans, some of these same quote-unquote foreign investors who are coming back. We were colonized by them. They utilize the lands, the same lands. And as we talk about agriculture, this is why agriculture is so important, because it was agriculture that they used the lands for, whether it's sugar, whether it's cocoa, whether it's coffee, whether it's coconut. It was agriculture. and they utilize the land.
Tafari, what you said, yes. Tafari, what you're saying is excellent. I love how you make that point because, and that is why lands are so important to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that is why when it comes to agriculture, farmers must have access to the best lands to reproduce crops that would benefit the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. In addition to what you have said, I think about the Tabasco farm that the government wants to implement and have farmers work on that farm as if a modern day slavery sort of arrangement, in the sense that, and why I say that is because I believe that our people should be given access to land. So many lands being acres of lands the Prime Minister talks about for this Tabasco farm, this pepper farm. But why couldn't this be given to farmers least at least for them to cultivate and create wealth for themselves?
Well, why can't it still happen? Why are we so pressed on offering these SSZs when we could advance the agricultural sector and have more hectares and acres of lands, whether it's doing avocado, whether it's doing mango, whether it's doing some other crop on a large scale? Now, the problem I have, Mr. Gumbs, with, some of what you guys say, and sometimes it's when you guys are in opposition, you say a number of things, but then when in the position to do these things, we don't see the necessary changes. And I'm saying this because as I look at governments over the years from independence up until now, where we are, it is both the P.A.M, the Labour, the PLP, who has us in this position. And they have had the same opportunities to do some of the same things that we are saying no, but they opted to go into tourism, then they opted to go into CBI, and CBI was another way of selling out the lands again to some extent, which is one of the reasons why I personally, yes.
Well, under the People's Action Movement, let's look at the 1980s. The People's Action Movement had some of its best years. St. Kitts and Nevis had some of its best years in the 1980s. From 1980 to 1995. Dr. Denzel Douglas and Labour then was in power from 1995 to 2015. When you talk about the CBI, I've said before that I believe that the Labour Party abused the CBI in 2006 with the closure of the sugar industry. I'm not saying that the CBI could not have been used to generate the income that it did
hold on
to benefit the people. Okay, go ahead.
Hold on a second. I think sometimes we seek to not be as truthful and as transparent as we should be, because the CBI would have started under the People's Action Movement, and there are a lot of allegations of the same things that you are making claim of that was done under the Labour Party. Now, for me, how I see it, it seems as if each government, after the introduction of the CBI, has taken it to another level that opened it up to another level of, if you want to call it corruption, or opportunities for corruption. And
I'm not saying Tafari that the People's Action Movement, of course there's no perfect government, and I'm not saying that the government is perfect or the administration. What I said is that the issuing of passport and the CBI program really became hot bread and butter during the Douglas-led administration those years. I mean, the CBI had been there in the 1980s. I'm not going to dispute that. But when you look at how the sale, it really revved up, for lack of a better word or expression, during the Dr. Denzel-led administration period. I mean, we saw the closure of the sugar industry. We saw the need to diversify. We went into tourism, and to buttress tourism, the CBI was used. Yes, it was under the People's Action Movement, but the utilization of the CBI program, I think, was even more done under the led administration. And I have no issue with the CBI being used. But when you look at the billions of dollars that should have been received by the country, and you look at the infrastructure of our country, you look at where we're at as a people, I think more should have been done to build up St. Kitts and Nevis, our infrastructure, our healthcare. I think these are issues of concern. So when you talk about politicians and what the politicians have done in the past, I say this to you, I have never been elected to government. Like you, have seen the abuse of certain individuals in public office, and I do not want to be considered as one of them if or when I have a seat at the table. If I become one of those persons, then it would mean that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis should get rid of me as much as I want to get rid of Labour now.
So I guess based on what you would have just explained, it seems, and I hope you could confirm, that you would have agreed with me that so far all of our politicians so far have failed us. Because based on what you're saying, in terms of your guys' responsibility, well, you say you're not elected yet, so the responsibility of those elected to represent us is to be able to keep our economy afloat, empower our people, and build the country and empower us to move forward. As you mentioned,
and I am saying that I am proud of the accomplishments of Sir Kennedy Simmons and P.A.M. during the 1980s to 1995. I am extremely proud of the accomplishments then, based on what I've outlined, seeing St. Kitts and Nevis developed, even getting, at one point in time, the highest per capita in Latin America and the Caribbean. And so I am proud of the accomplishments during that time. During our time in Team Unity, we also would have made some accomplishments. You see social programs, the roofing program, where a number of persons benefited. We saw the social program through P.A.M, where a number of individuals, a number of households receive additional income so they could meet the present-day reality. And so even by the People's Action Movement, when we were in government, you saw the motion of no confidence that was really used as a tool by the Labour administration to frustrate the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. As soon as Team Unity, in which P.A.M was a part of, came into power, they put on a set timeline for that. So that abuse cannot happen again by any member of Parliament or any Prime Minister or any government. Is there a perfect administration? No, but I think the People's Action Movement is as best as we've gotten to good representation over the years. I mean, Labour has done some good, but the current Labour administration has failed the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and continue to fail the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to such an extent that people cannot even recognize the Labour Party under Dr. Drew. I mean, a lot of Labour supporters are the ones complaining about the poor performance of Dr. Drew at this point in time. Never before has an administration been so unpopular in such a short time. This might be the very first time that we had a one-term government. St. Kitts and Nevis has never elected a one-term government. And this, I am sure, it's going to be history in the making.
So let me ask you a question, Mr. Gumbs. Do you at this point in your career and in your life and living in St. Kitts and Nevis, do you own any land on St. Kitts and Nevis?
Yes, I own land in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay.
On St. Kitts.
You own land on St. Kitts, okay. If you were to find yourself in some financial difficulty, do you think that your first choice of seeking to solve your financial problem would be to seek to sell your land?
No, it will not be. My land is in constituency number 4, as it stands, and it's something dear to me. I hope to build in the near future, and I hope to reside in constituency 4 among the people of constituency 4.
So you may be willing to agree that selling out your land would be like your last resort, right? Like you would have to really
it would be my last resort.
Okay. So why do you think that the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis should feel comfortable that after we have elected people and officials
First
to
Safari,
represent us.
first Safari, I
Just
never
let me finish.
said,
Not
no,
you. No,
I
this is
never
not
said that the
direct
people.
to you. This is not direct to you.
Okay,
So it's not direct
okay,
to you. I asked the question to you because I am getting to where I am going. The the
okay,
the, the we elect um, officials to represent us. We expect
yes,
them to find ways and means to diversify the economy and to get things flowing and so on. So, like I said, we had agriculture, which was a main industry back in the enslavement era. We got independence. For some reason, we would have not continued so much to deal with agriculture, except for St. Kitts who continued the sugar industry. We got into tourism. We got into offshore banking to some extent. We would have got red flags and whatever kind of flags on the area. We got into CBI as means of diversification. And seemingly, where we are right now, what our leaders are telling us is that they have no other option but to sell out the lands to find ways to develop our economy. And they're expecting us to feel comfortable by bringing this opportunity for us. And so, as we talk about agriculture, and you wanted to speak about agriculture, why in the diversification process are we not considering agriculture and even the cannabis industry as viable options in terms of diversification, which would not only create jobs and opportunities for entrepreneurs and agripreneurs and new industries, but also would mean that we would maintain a lot of these large acres that we are looking to sell, lease, or put into enclaves and these other things. So, what is Azad's position in terms of diversifying the economy using cannabis, especially as it is now an agricultural crop, and in the agricultural sector?
okay. Well, thank you for that, Tafari. As you have said, I think when it comes to the selling of lands, especially lands to for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, that should always be a last resort. I always believe in leasing of lands more than the sale of lands when it comes to these foreign investment and the like. Um, We've seen whereby there has been a number of initiatives put forward under the CBI as well, and whereby we expected them to be grand projects, and at the end of the day, many of them unfinished, many of them not reaping, we're not reaping the benefit of. And so we have to be very careful. As it relates to agriculture, I think that greater focus should be on agriculture. I mean, we live in a small country. St. Kitts and Nevis is not a large country by any stretch of the imagination. I believe that we have a small population, and I believe that given the land size that we have, we should be able to feed our people. I believe that we need more cooperation between government and farmers. One thing, when you talk to farmers, they're saying that the government, this Labour administration, takes a top-down approach, whereby there's little or no consultation from the government to the shareholders, the farmers, who, in terms of a lot of the initiatives, you ask farmers, a problem with farming is not, access to capital, because we realize that it is a capital intense industry. We realize it is exposed to so many environmental factors. You look at climate change, we look at hurricanes, we look at so many natural disasters that could affect agriculture and the crop production at any point in time. As you talk about the cannabis and the development of the cannabis industry, you would know that is under the People's Action Movement and Team Unity that, talks about this industry had been done. You go to the US, and US in certain states, they have medicinal cannabis. In fact, if you go to the US and in certain states and certain shops, they would have the marijuana, they will tell you exactly what is in it and what contents are in it. There are the different types, and persons are exposed to whatever type of cannabis it is, the various effects. Is something that we could look in here in St. Kitts and Nevis is one of great interest. But it has to be that the it has to be what I want to say, if we bring these industries in and the common man like you and me can't benefit from the industry, and it is only the foreigners that benefit from it, then what good is it to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis when it comes to greater development? And so we must always look at foreign investment, yes, and I'm not against foreign investment and foreign investors, but they must hand in hand work with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to make the people of St. Kitts and Nevis's lives better, not worse. And so I think what a lot of persons have been saying is that oftentimes governments are more interested in assisting foreign investors than the local businessmen. You hear the cry on the streets, you hear it among the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and what we need is a government that would assist ordinary citizens to create wealth, to create businesses, that would create the environment so the economy can grow, so persons can become entrepreneurs and they can benefit from a strong economy. I think that in the next election, that one of the major factors one of the major focus during the next election is going to be the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis. We see that the CBI, the revenue from the CBI is depleting. We hear of rumors where government spending has to be cut by 25%. We have the IMF report that says if St. Kitts and Nevis continues on the way it is continuing, up to 70%. Will be in a deficit of up to 70%. Right now, we are think about 60-something percent. And by the time 2030, if Labour continues on the path that they're going, we'll be up to almost 70%. And so these are factors that we must take in consideration, whether or not those persons in now have the necessary creativity and have the necessary drive to push this economy where it needs to go. And yes, we may talk about external factors that have resulted in the state that we are in today. But external factors, as always, govern small island territories like ourselves. It is for governments to be strong and robust, to create policy that will shield the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to shield the people of St. Kitts and Nevis as we grow as a people. You talk about diversification. I think too we need to look into education and perhaps education tourism. You look at the Ross University and you see that the influx of those students in our country benefit our economy. Why not have another university here in St. Kitts and Nevis whereby we have thousands of students attending, whereby they can add to our economy? Local business owners can have opportunity to rent. We need to, as much as possible, reduce the number of dorms and dormitories that these universities would provide so that our local entrepreneurs could benefit from real estate and having their property leased. I think having those influx of persons into our country would benefit our country and would boost our economy.
I want to piggyback on the Tabasco. You mentioned to talk about the Tabasco SARS project at Southern University and the Tabasco SARS company. Well, I'm not sure. You see what happened right now, the project is not explained. I'm not sure the first project what I had planned, or if that is not have been forbidden or they have a new, because if you're not going to come to the general public and explain how this thing going to work and how you're going to export the raw material, or if you're not going to processing the material. I don't know what is about, what the project is about, and no one seems to be explaining what the project is about. And that is the thing about it, because you just see.
And Bankie, you're a farmer, are you not?
Yes.
And it is, and that is what I'm saying. I mean, if you do not know what the project is about, Bankie, because of the lack of information that is given by this administration, imagine the average citizen who's not in the farming.
I know the project is about growing peppers, but then after growing the pepper, I'm not sure if we're going to ship the raw material, or if, because being told the site on every island by where the Tabasco sauce go, because peppers are grown all over the world, Honduras, in China, in the US and different places, and then they put all together. but they process it there. I'm not sure what is the plan. What is the plan here? If they're gonna grow it, meet with farmers, how much gonna pay them for their peppers? Because I don't hear all of this conversation, and yet you still, because either way, if the government gonna allocate the land, 300 acres, those lands still must be developed with water, irrigation system designs and stuff like that. If some gonna go in greenhouses, cause some you can still. So it is not explained. You don't have no collaboration with the farmers or the general public. So some not even me can speak and the topic. That's the whole point. You see what I mean?
Yes, and
First thing,
Bankie.
if I'm gonna go and proper explain, I must have to know how much per pound I'm gonna be getting. You see, that's rule number one. So I have an idea. Well, if I want to be a part of this project, because if the dance can't be feeling light, then farmers will not get involved. You see what I mean? So but my question to
Bankie, and
you,
that is what I'm
as the
saying.
yes, my question to you
That is
as
what
the
I'm saying,
deputy leader,
Bankie. Yes.
for PAM, the People's Action Movement, because we have realized we have moved into tourism and most of our land are being given out for large development, hundreds of acres. What policy do PAM have when it comes to earmarking land specific for agriculture, housing development, and expanding the community in a sense? Because we seem not to be having that from either party or either government within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Because the more you ask for land for agriculture is not available. But then when it comes to tourism, you only find all this land. So what is does PAM have a policy when it comes to earmarking land and for agriculture itself and injecting when it comes to also injecting money? Because agriculture seems to be having some of the lowest budget there is. And in order for this to be successful, it's got to be tangible. And for one, agriculture they use a lot of water.
Okay. Banky, I'm glad you made mention of that. In fact, a number of us from the People's Action Movement and with the political leader, she would have presented a plan in which we would have looked at and discussed. Whereas we're looking at several pillars of the economy, and agriculture is definitely one of those pillars. We look at we look at the revenue that is allotted to agriculture by cabinet and by parliament. And, there's discussion that there should be an increase of the revenues afforded to agriculture to meet the needs of farmers and to meet the need here in St. Kitts and Nevis. You talk about the land distribution, and I do agree with you. There needs to be proper land use or land distribution. There needs to be proper urban planning. At one point in time, it seems as though that governments come in, successive governments have come in time and time again, and not properly planned for the distribution of land when it comes to agriculture and the like. Look at Bastia, and persons look at Bastia, and Bastia, in my view, needs a renovation in terms of some of the structures that we see there. Some persons may say a facelift. The former candidate for the People's Action Movement, General Powell, when he campaigned, spoke about the resurfacing or the revitalization of Bastia. I think those are things that we have to discuss, and those are things that we are discussing. Land distribution is important when it comes to farmers, and it is something that we hold dear to our hearts. If you look at it, Troy Flanders ran in the last election. Troy is a farmer. Agriculture is something dear to Troy, and Troy makes it his business to address the plight of farmers on a regular occasion. I mean, I sit at the table as well, and numerous times when Troy speaks about agriculture, in my mind I say agriculture is a necessary vehicle to transport St. Kitts and Nevis to greener pastures. You understand? And so greater focus would be placed on agriculture by the People's Action Movement. We could assure you that. And farmers would be given the necessary opportunities to succeed. We know that agriculture can be a huge industry, just like healthcare. I mean, just like how we have tourism authority, why not have an authority for agriculture? We look at the cooperatives that now is in agriculture. But why not have stronger bodies whereby there are stronger associations of farmers that could meet with government and discuss what is necessary for farmers and have proper consultation. I believe everything can be solved with proper planning and proper consultation. I cannot tell you what you would want as a farmer. You would have to tell me what you want. And then from that, I could tell you what we are able to provide. It must be constant dialogue. It cannot be a top-down approach. And that is what I think is that is Labour's shortcoming. In every aspect of their governance, it has been a top-down approach. And we are saying, and I am saying, that in any administration that I am a part of, we must have collaboration, especially with the persons most affected by our decisions.
But what would the People's Action Movement do different when it comes to encouraging young people? When I say young people, I mean both male and female, because agriculture is not gender biased. So what would you guys do different when it comes to encouraging young people to get into the sector? Whether it's getting into veterinary, whether it's getting into plant science, just the whole sector itself, when the marine environment, what would you all do different than what is going on now?
Well, I'll tell you my idea in how to address that. I think what we need to do is revamp the package of how agriculture is looked at. Back in the day, agriculture is seen, and it can be a dirty job in the sense like you get your hands dirty and stuff like that. But with the advance of technology, there are persons who are needed in the agricultural sector who can market. One of the issues faced by farmers is when you go to the marketing unit, the sale of their produce. We need persons who will be able to market. So when you're selling these things in agriculture to citizens, to young people, you have to sell agriculture, I believe, as a holistic package. You'll need persons who would be skilled in accounting because you need to know that you can balance the books and that the industry have proper persons who can do the bookkeeping. You need to know that you can have persons who can market the produce. You'll need persons who could assist with the equipment. And so I think what needs to be done is that you need to package agriculture. You need to make agriculture look attractive to young people because young people are like attractive packages.
But you see, agriculture is one of those industries that take a lot of resources. So will you make them accessible to grants, to loans that will have interest-free loans, 1% loans depending on the amount, and at the same time, water is a serious issue. So you can't farm it without water.
And I have heard you speak, Bankie, on your program before about water. I have heard you spoken about low rates when it comes to water for certain businesses. Why not agriculture and farmers receiving those low rates? I've heard you on your program speak about the cost of water being so high that you really can't offset the expenses at the end of the day based on what you have produced. And I have heard you, and it takes someone who listens to the people to come up with solutions. And so that would have to be something that we have to consider when it comes to water use, when it comes to the cost of water, how farmers can get water on at their lands at an affordable price. When it comes to grants, how can farmers receive grants that would assist them? You talk about agriculture, you talk about equipment. How can farmers receive the necessary incentives? Of course, this would be something that we put forward in our manifesto as we continue to discuss the realities that farmers face. And so, Bankie, as you have rightfully said, you continue through your program here, and you have spoken about a number of issues that farmers are facing. I have a farmer at the table in the People's Action Movement, in the person of Troy Flanders, who speaks about the issues that farmers face as well. And so the People's Action Movement is listening. We can craft something that many of us don't have first-hand experience as it relates to the issues and plights. I'm a lawyer by profession, and it takes one to listen to the plights of farmers, to understand and to craft legislation and policies that would meet their needs.
as you mentioned, as crafting and stuff like that, with the SSZ, as a lawyer, and you go through the document, what is some of the thing that that you can point out that you feel like this don't make any sense? Especially when you say we're gonna go into the special zone where there's no minimum amount and there no large amount in such a small space. How, as one who do with documents and so forth, what some of the stuff that popped out that this is not in the favor for the people?
Well, one of the things that pop out to me is a regulatory body that is at the discretion of the Prime Minister. That they say that there may be a regulatory body. I think there needs to be mandatory a regulatory body that governs the process, that oversees the process. And I think the regulatory body should be put in place, and it should not be conditional. As it relate to the SSZ, we recognize that Labour administration has passed this legislation much in secrecy. Now they're talking about it, and they're trying to be transparent as much as they can about it, educating people about it. But what they did last, they should have done first. Again, the People's Action Movement is going to put out its position on the matter, and I would like for the party to put out the position first, and then I could speak about it because I do have my own thoughts on it. But I would like the party to put out the position first before I start to speak on it.
Okay, before you get back in the Bankie, right? As you spoke on that point in the SSZ, because I want to get your position as a lawyer yourself, because when we had the premier on the program, when we interviewed the premier on the program, that was one of the questions I asked, and that was one of the things I highlighted and pointed out, because I said, when I read that in the SSZ, I was like, I know these guys are legal-minded persons who put these things together. He said, the premier said it was done at the AG's office. He also said that they were able to purview it before it was even passed in the draft form. Now, from a legal perspective and a legal mind, I know that the word may and the word shall has two total different interpretations when it comes to the law. And I questioned that myself. Why did they say may, which means that it is something that can be done, or they just could choose not to do it? But if it said shall, then it meant that it is something that has to be done. And so what are your thoughts from that legal perspective? Why you think that maybe legal-minded people like like the AG and like the Premier would seek to use that kind of vague language with something that is so critical?
Well, at the end of the day, it means that more power lies in the hands of the Prime Minister, whereby there are fewer checks and balances. So there's no regulatory body if he doesn't want a regulatory body. And so it raises the question and gives the Prime Minister greater authority, given certain situations, to move with certain action if it so desires, not to have a regulatory framework or body in place. And so that is what is one of concern to me, that when you're dealing with matters like this, as many eyes as possible and as many checks and balances necessary to ensure that, persons trust the process. I mean, you have legislation there, and the legislation is there as we speak, but one has to look at how it's going to be implemented. And the implementation of that legislation is going to be very crucial. I mean, when you have language that says may instead of shall, it all speaks to implementation of the legislation. And so that is why I think greater discussion should have been done prior to the passing of this.
Okay, now I hear that, Mr. Gumbs Azad, and I myself share that position. One of the pushbacks that we get from that is that, well, I have been in politics and I've been going to parliament for almost 20 years now in my career, and I have never heard of any bill that was presented to the public for the discussion before it goes to the House. In my view, and I keep saying that seemingly us, the masses, who are actually the bosses, are allowing those who we elect and are our employees to use reverse psychology when they get in that position and then pretend to be our bosses and seek to say they're doing things on behalf of us without consulting with us. And it has become seemingly the norm because we, the masses, have not necessarily been holding them accountable and demanding the sort of transparency and consultations that they should be giving their bosses. And that is the problem I have when it seems to me that they are making it seem as if that not consulting with us has become the norm. What is your position in regards to that, and what would a People's Action Movement and a deputy leader who possibly can be the Prime Minister do to change what we are now saying should be something totally different?
Well, Tafari, as you have rightfully said, we have elected those persons to serve us, not the other way around. And I bet you this, perhaps they didn't think that this legislation that was passed would have created such a tension, you understand, and would have been in such a heated debate even up to this day. I mean, yes, there's some legislation passed in Parliament, and you hear about these bills or amendments to the Act, and they pass them. But I believe that when it comes to certain things, certain issues that you need public discourse, you need consultation. And it would make me think that the reason why they rushed a bill like this into the House was to not give the public a chance to scrutinize it and perhaps to give the public and to pull some wool over the public's eyes. Maybe in their haste.
As a legal mind, a bill like this, could this bill have been passed in Nevis without going to the federal government?
Well, let's say this. Nevis has, by the Constitution, certain autonomy when it comes to their lands. If it comes to, remember, this bill or this act is a federal act. It not only governs Nevis, but it governs St. Kitts. So an act of this nature that governs...
What I'm saying, can Nevis could have gone and pass a bill, have nothing to do with the federal government, have to do this and St. Kitts part, but just to accommodate Nevis. That is the part.
Well, I believe Bankie, it has. You see, you're creating a situation that's perhaps different to this. Nevis has always governed their lands based on the Constitution. They distribute lands. The government distribute lands in Nevis. I mean, the government has their own facility and department whereby lands are sold to persons in Nevis, and so they have had their own structure of land distribution from time to time again. The issue of this is that it not only concerns Nevis, it concerns St. Kitts and Nevis, and as a federal government, if you're going to include St. Kitts, you'll have to include the federal government. But as it relates to a bill of this, an act of this nature that includes St. Kitts and Nevis, it would have to be passed here. But it doesn't mean that Nevis hasn't been handling its own affairs through land distributions before. It has been. I mean, government, the NIA has control over lands and would have been distributing lands to locals. Would it not have been?
Look, the reason why I asked this question is that it went into St. Kitts, I'm just hypothetically saying, did the bill went to St. Kitts just so that it is passed in St. Kitts, but really have the intent for Nevis use in a sense, because I mean, it's really Nevis go dealing with the project. Think and have the big project going on where they have those think have a specials.
Well,
If anyone comes to
think
think
it's
it one
think.
acres of land, 10 acres of land, 10,000 acres of land to buy to develop an area in St. Kitts, that's what I'm saying. You should really say more like this
But
machine
then,
that I'm on Nevis end. Yes.
well, I do not know what was the thought. When I want to say that, I do not know what the discussions
Mhm.
behind the
Of
cameras would have
course.
been. You understand?
Yes.
A bill
Yes.
like act like this would also affect Saint Kitts. I do not know what is in the pipelines for Saint Kitts, Bankie. You understand?
Of course.
And
Of course.
so,
Of course.
as you said, have you seen with this administration, we can't take anything for granted. We don't know what is coming our way in Saint Kitts now. I mean, it might be affecting Nevis at this point in time, but who's to say in the not too near future we don't hear about a project in Saint Kitts as well?
But
So yes, one.
okay, like one of the things
Yes,
that
one. Before
I
you go, any question by any of the viewing audience? Any questions there to get them out of the way?
yes, let me do that. We have some. Let's go back here. Alan Powell. So he has no individual opinion. Everyone voting for the leader. I could come on and explain, you know. Okay, so talking about the history as mentioned in Nevis, had the right to go secession 18 months after independence. What became of that situation? Question for Azad. Who is that question? Question for Azad. Talking about the CBI, is he one of the lawyers that were involved with that program? And does he still work in that regard? So that's a question. Another question, as a lawyer, do we see any conflict of interest with any members of the NIA in regards to the land grab for the enclave on the Nevis south side? Those are two of the questions. Two of the comments. Kari says it doesn't matter which party is running the SKN government or what the history has been. What is important now is protecting the US from protecting us from external forces to prevent enslavement from being repeated. The candidate needs to be more concerned about these so-called UN goals and sustainability goals. This SSZ nonsense is directly a result of that, and there are far more dangers heading our way. On the Facebook side, we have Gigi Williams Keats saying divisions don't play when it comes to their land. I got thrown off there a bit. Okay. These politicians were hoping to pull wool over our eyes. It was done in SK, so the people in Nevis didn't get wind of it before. After the lady Carlin Lawrence asked the Premier about the lands, the bill was passed on the seat. Yes, Azad, exactly. The SSZ issue, giving autonomy to the investors can perhaps lead to an apartheid-like situation in Nevis and maybe some racial tensions with the amount of people expected to be in the zone. Is autonomy within the Federation even legal? These are some of the questions on the Facebook wall and on the YouTube platform. And as you realize, Azad, as you said, this is not an issue that is going to go away. Usually, you find politicians and people, they do these things, and people, it's a hot topic for 9 days and they forget about it. But this isn't one such topic. And so, your feedback on some of the responses to some of the questions that's being presented.
So someone asked if I'm one of the CBI lawyers. No, I've never been involved in CBI to that extent. And so I'm not one of those CBI lawyers. So I'm not being caught up in that when it comes to being a CBI lawyer or whatever was being asked by that question. I know that you asked a number of questions. You asked about some of them. Didn't have the chance to write down.
Okay, so
you want to go one by one?
Yeah, let me see. Okay, let's go back and do this one. Says Um, Talking about the history, as mentioned, Navis had the right to go secession 18 months after independence. What became of that situation?
Well, you see what happened to that situation. All referendums to leave St. Kitts failed. We realized that I think there was one when Labour got back into office, and that failed. It didn't get the necessary two-thirds needed, and so St. Kitts and Nevis is still together as one federation.
Okay. Let's see. It doesn't matter which party is running SKN government, what the history has been. What's important now is protecting us from the external forces to prevent enslavement from being repeated. The candidate needs to be concerned about these so-called UN goals and sustainability goals. This SSZ nonsense is directly as a result of that, and there are far more dangers heading away. Dangers are away from the World Economic Forum and United Nations goals, and our leaders need to research and be on guard. Can you ask the candidate whether he is aware that governments face a lot of pressures to go along with this, including St. Kitts and Nevis? Remember, a cause that sounds good is always used to enslave people.
Okay, so I know that governments can be under pressure by, external forces, but I cannot say that this was one that governments would have felt some pressure. I don't know. Based on what we've heard in the news, I don't think there's anything that indicates that government was feeling pressure to pass this legislation. Tafari, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that government was pressured? Bankie, do you feel that government was pressured? In my view, I don't see that there is any evidence that any external force would have pressured any government or the government of ours to pass a legislation like this.
You see external forces, as in like the United Nations or any one of those international bodies? No. I am of the view, based on some of the information that I'm seeing presented, that it is as a result of the failure of our government, so to speak, to diversify the economy and to stimulate the economy that has put us in a position that we are in today. As we mentioned, the CBI, which was one of the options that was selected as a diversification plan, had became, so to speak, like the mainstay. We were seeing, the government depended on 60-something% of CBI to maintain their, budget, which was ridiculous. And so now CBI has found itself in some situations, and now they're telling us now, like I'm saying, you all have totally failed us, and the last resort now is to sell out the lands. And so that is where I have that difficulty. So to say that they've been pressured from outside forces, from my standpoint, I don't think so. Maybe pressured by the fact that they are in debt and they need money, and and that is scary, based on reports that I have seen in reading from, especially on the Navy side, the group of people who they're seeking to do business with at this point, because there's information out there in terms of what their plans and intentions are from their perspective as a group of people who consider themselves libertarians and so on. From what I'm seeing and what they have said, it is pretty scary. And I see pressure more to win an election, stay in power, and to get some money as the motive to push this agenda.
Okay. So you and I agree, I'm here again. You and I agree on that stance that it doesn't seem to be, in this perspective, at least from the evidence presented before us, to be a result. The passage of this bill, now an act, doesn't seem to show that there was an external force that would have resulted in this being passed, but maybe of an economic factor whereby the government now is saying that, the heavy reliance on CBI, we can't do that anymore. We have to diversify, and this being one of the areas to create jobs and wealth.
Azad,
Another question that
what,
was
what,
here. Sorry, Banky. There was another question here. If any conflict of interest by any member of the NIA with the land grab and Nevis for the proposed enclave.
Say that again?
If you see any conflicts of interest by any member of the NIA with the land grab and Nevis for the proposed project that we're talking about for the SSC.
Well, at this point in time, information is still being presented to us. I mean, there are talks. There are talks. I will not say that there haven't been talks, of course. As a citizen, I hear the conversation between, lawyers, who's the lawyer for these persons, and the like. There are talks. But, I mean, there may be perceived conflicts of interest, yes, but I would like to know all the facts, all the situations before I answer something like that.
Okay, well, let me just put a little bit of meat on that. Okay, so there's a scenario with the realtor who was responsible for seeking to encourage the citizens to sell most of the lands, and her connection with the leader of the island of Nevis. And he mentioned that the realtor, which is his partner, is the go-between, so to speak, for the investor in terms of seeking to purchase the land from the individuals, the locals, for the development. So I guess that is where that is coming from in terms of asking if, from your perspective, if you see that as conflict of interest, or but you said it could be perceived. I don't know if you were playing with that aspect of it, or you were just looking at other aspects of it.
Well, as it relates to that, there would be some perceived conflict of interest on the face of it. I don't know all the facts as it relates to what is being handled, and because I don't have all the facts presented before me, I wouldn't like to go through that at this point in time.
Azad, let me get two questions there for you. And about class 113 in Nevis, do you think Sinkits need to have one, and do you think Sinkits need its own local government, and then there should be a federal government, so that because right now, up to now, we can't even find out how to share resources between both islands, and we need to come better than this. So what are the People's Action Movement plan when it comes to other have anyway if they say that Sinkit itself need to have a local government and also need also a class 113 where things can be balanced?
I can't hear you clearly for the first part. I hear you when it comes to whether or not St. Kitts and Nevis should have a local government. I mean, St. Kitts should have
The
a local
Sinkit
government
itself,
and Nevis a local
yes.
government.
And also, do you think the Nevis have a class 113, but do you think Sinkits also would need us the same class 113? If there's a local government, would they need the same thing offered to them, just like it's offered to Nevis? And then Nevis have its own flag too. so you should have going and Sinkit did the own flag, and then there's a federal flag along that line.
I let me talk about me personally before going without
Yes.
addressing the party. For me, I like the idea of having St. Kitts and Nevis together. I believe
Okay.
that we are two small islands, that we are better together than separated. When it comes to St. Kitts having its own local government, that is something that I've considered in my mind over and over. How would that work? Because I think it's something that we could discuss. I think it's something that we should discuss with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, how it would work, how then would persons serve on a federal level. Is it that we're going to run local elections? We have to look at the cost of elections as well, because elections are they're expensive, They're costly. And so one has to think about it. Do we have local and federal at the same time? Do we have same persons running in local and federal? Do we have a batch of persons on the local, and then afterwards among them choose who go to the federal? Or maybe so these are discussions that need to be had. I don't think one particular group has all the answers. I think it's something that will have progressive consultation, because that is why I think that is best, because everyone is going to have their own stance on it. And I think you get more of a buy-in at the end of the day if you have more collaboration and more consultation. Do I believe that St. Kitts needs a local government? Perhaps. How do we craft such where you have a local government for St. Kitts, a local government for Nevis, and then a federal? That's something that we'll all have to discuss. Different positions put forward and persons giving their views on it. I think something like that needs to be a discussion, not just passed in Parliament or make change to our constitution, but actually have a series of discussions where we talk about constitutional reform.
Bankie, you're muted. You're muted, Bankie. Unmute your mic.
Yeah, we're just giving out the telephone number. Anyone want to call? The number is 1-869-662-7196. Yes, you can get the number also.
Yes, 1-869-665-8459. I am smiling here because even in the chat here, we're having a little bit of politics, and even though we have different views in here, it's always good to have the different views, because some are saying that the crickets are bothering them, and some people are saying that they're enjoying hearing the nature. So even in here we have our own little politics going on. But a little light moment as we continue on this edition of the topics. Mr. Gumbs, are you aware that there's a federal office on the island of Nevis?
When you say federal office, explain.
There's an office that is on Nevis that is a federal office that should have was set up with the intent to accommodate ministers from St. Kitts who are part of the federal government, because the government is the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts do not have a government. And so
that is true.
We are crying over Nevis that we have not even seen the Prime Minister at this point to have a conversation with Nevisians. And there is an office, and I'm not certain how active it is. If you were to be, and your party is supposed to win, I'm coming to you, Carla. The next leader, what would you do? But before you answer that, there's a caller here, so I'll let the caller weigh in with his position. So good evening, caller.
Good evening to everybody. Thank you, Mr. Azad. You've been catching, you've been fighting, talking. Mr. Azad, you are very young into the politics. If you learn a lot of history about politics, and you know a lot of history, but you also which is what is about all of this best we in today. Like action movement. Second, all of the best of what we did today, we look at you all and people action. So I said, you are saying everything on one side. I can recall years ago, just in the way the government went to pass the Nevis, to create this same thing what they tried to say. And what was the pushback? What was the
Okay, so you can call back. He will respond to you.
To be quite honest, is that Curtis
Wait,
Crow?
one second,
Yes.
Mr. Gumbs. He said he's gonna finish up.
Yes, look at the Constitution from 1983. Look at them there. The country is there's a bunch of people with the ego. They've been over to the rest in peace. People like people have the same country. Yes. Because I want to listen to anybody about the ego and all over the world. My brother has a problem in this program and teaches something that's up. I'm going to put it in. Because don't let us forget. There's a lot of talk about the ambulance and some people and families are going to get offended. Let me leave that alone. Have a good night.
Okay. I am going to let you respond, but I'm not certain, Mr. Cook, that we had any conversations about Anguilla this evening. So I don't know if that's from some other story, but we really didn't get into anything about Anguilla. But you could respond to him, and at the same time to Mr. Gumbs, speak to. Well, it seems as if you are not aware that there is a federal officer in Nevis, but now that you are aware, what would you do if you were to be elected, in terms of us having the ability and Nevis to be able to liaise with our ministers? Maybe maybe they work from Nevis one day, out of the week or something like that. What's your views in that regards?
Okay. So you could see me? You
Yes.
I'm here?
Yes.
Okay.
And Bankie, one
So
second. And Bankie,
Curtis,
in the meantime, we can
hmm,
pause our mics if we're not speaking.
okay, so I only know that's Curtis Cook based on his voice. I couldn't understand much of what he was saying, but I know he speaks in a kind of loud manner. So I assume that it was him, but I don't know what he actually said. I couldn't hear him properly. So it's
It was very
unfortunate
difficult
because I would
to
like to
hear Mr. Cook.
respond.
Yahsonn. It was very difficult
Say
to
again?
hear him. No, it's very difficult to
Yes.
understand what he was saying.
Yes. In
Go ahead,
terms of
Yahsonn.
having a federal office in Nevis, Tafari, that's an easy question for me. I mean, sorry, an easy answer for me. I love Nevis. I love going over to Nevis. I think we're one people. In fact, Nevis presents its own. It's so peaceful. It's a different side of the island, and I mean, I would love I would love to be in Nevis, to serve the people of Nevis as well, as a federal minister. I have no difficulty. I think we're one federation and we should utilize
My
both islands as much as possible.
Okay.
I think Nevis is very nice.
I think Curtis was trying to call back, but Curtis, maybe I'll suggest that you try Bankie's number. Maybe his speakerphone might be
Yeah.
a little bit better. So try 662-7196. Curtis, it's not intentional that I'm not responding to you. So try
It's on my phone.
662-7196, and then you might
Yes.
be able to respond. Get a better reception.
And just speak much slower and express himself clearly and not as fast. And just Curtis speak very, very fast. Just slow down and express himself clearly, so at least Azad and everyone can hear exactly what he's saying.
Yes, so
And still
Curtis,
can still be passionate at the same time.
662-7196, and you can call back in.
All right, yeah, so the call is coming in right now. Let me take the call right now. Call, good evening. Welcome to the topics.
Good evening. We're just seeing a little bit.
Yes.
Azad Gumbs.
Yes, go ahead.
Shouting, cool and calm. Again, let me explain to you again because you see that you're rather young. And I really would like to get you one on one, you know, brother. Because I'm realizing it again. Every time I get a chance to speak, you see up your head bent on trying to disrespect Sir Robert Llewellyn Fletcher. You had a leader, Kennedy Alphonse Simmons, was the leader for 15 years. Knew absolutely nothing of a Fletcher. But we end up with the Kennedy Simmons highway. And I keep taking you on, brother. Every time Labour was trying to do something in this country, same federal office they're talking about. That's what we hear this constitution was supposed to get it done, but don't make no sense. You are create that. And today you're coming here trying to get the impression that the Labour create this problem. You are went so far and so dirty that you put a clause in place to block Situate Brian. These are the behavior of over all the years. Some of the people of the story, you like to talk about 1967. Well, if you want to go to 1967, Kennedy Simmons back the books. They were selling in Nevis, but the police selling tickets. You know, Simmons also white people all over the country in 1980 in the Jones or the P.A.M. Because the kind of oppression of what was going on. Talk the truth, my brother. Anytime you're ready to debate, you keep catching all on you. And the yard that had a match up on that. Let me ask you a question. If you give them power, don't you not check the ways what the government get? And a lot of your politicians are coming in today need to go to like take the test. But all of these things are serious. A lot of them play with people in life and the deception need to stop. And I tell you truth to start social security. Not blindly if you get the social security scholarship. Who had for this country? And it's not very money today. But now I want to give back no praise. One of you all want to give back no praise. Simmons, my God, 15 years king. And you was a part of your party, was a part of wicked government for 7 years, oppressing people. You had nothing to say. Now I try to sing out myself from 7 years in money. But brother, you all need to stop. You are doing nothing wrong things to people for 7 years, brother. Living hard for 7 years. You kind of clearness what was going on. But what I have to say, you have a good night.
I appreciate it, Carl. Thanks for calling. Do you hear anything, Azad?
Okay, so yeah, I heard some parts. I'm
Okay.
not trying. Is echoing? Okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So Curtis talk about persons not wanted, perhaps me not wanting to highlight the accomplishments of Sir Bradshaw. Of course, Bradshaw would have done a lot for the country. I'm not saying that. He would have led the country, especially during those colonial past, or those times. He was instrumental taking us through those colonial period. And you know, he was a strong leader. All I've been saying is that, you know, he was not successful in achieving independence for our country. It was Sir Kennedy Simmons and Sir Simeon Daniel who, in the end, achieved independence for our country. Not to say that his contribution to our country has not been great. I would never say that his contribution has not been great. I think he talks about the Constitution, saying that, you know, P.A.M. NRP created this Constitution. Yes, I mean, during the time the P.A.M. and NRP was in government, there was a draft constitution, but I could tell you this, there wasn't a draft constitution prior to the People's Action Movement. Labour said that they were going into independence, and, you know, with Bradshaw, Sir Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw. But at the time, there wasn't a draft constitution done. So it's not even, we don't even know what the Labour administration would have put forward to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Because to my knowledge, there was not a draft constitution done. The draft constitution was done when the People's Action Movement was there with NRP. In addition to that, we had the Labour Party in power for some excess, almost 20 years, from 1995 to 2015. At one point in time, Labour had all seats in Parliament on St. Kitts and had a absolute majority, so they could have made any changes in Parliament. They could have passed any bill. There was no P.A.M representative. There was no real opposition. And so if they wanted to make constitutional changes, they could have. I mean, on the last show where I was, where Sam Kondo was as well, he talked about being a part of some constitutional committee. And then at the end of the day, I said to him, at the end of the day, the committee accomplished nothing. Nothing was done, even when Labour had all 8 seats in Parliament. So if there's any shortcomings to the Constitution, when Labour had an absolute majority, Curtis, as a Labour supporter, you should have advocated for changes then. Of course, if there are changes now, because we know Constitution was drafted in the 1980s, and of course there could be amendments now. If there are amendments that you see fit, you could always discuss it with us when we're in office in the not too distant future. In the not too distant future, you could discuss it with us, and we could bring the constitutional reform to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Curtis, where your government has failed, we will succeed. The election soon come. In less than 2 years, the People's Action Movement will be back in government, and so we are open to discussing whatever you have to discuss as it relates to constitutional reform.
Yes, sir. We have gone 2 hours.
Yes.
So any more comments, and then we start to wrap up. If any more comments exist.
Yes, I was just about to say that, that time has moved on so quickly, we have even gotten into everything, but I guess we kept him very much on his toes and involved with answering a number of questions. But I have a question before you leave, but I'm going to go to somebody.
Azard doing great.
Yes, the current SSZ legislation was tailored to ensure what happened between Ocean Reef Resorts and the NIA doesn't happen again. But B. Jones says, I personally believe that the attack-style politics should stop, but Azad being a youngster, we should try to educate him and encourage him like we should encourage everyone else. Time for a new paradigm with the politics and the federation. In the federation, and we need new people, new ideas, and I will give him
Yes, so there's a call coming in. Let me take this call.
Okay.
And then we can. Carla, good evening. Hello? Carla? Carla, good evening. All right, go ahead, Yahsonn. We can call back.
Yes, okay, so this says, time for a new paradigm with the new politics in the federation. We need new people with new ideas, and I will give Nubian and Azad a fair chance like everyone else. Bobby Jones, you're going to give Bankie a fair chance too? I mean, you didn't have him in the mix, but I'm just going to put him in here. They had nothing to do with the history of the federation. Why don't we talk to those who went before about those issues? All of the politicians that went before, they got corrupted and they failed us. As the caller is talking about Brian Claus, to block Fitzroy Bryant, why is it still in the Constitution? Can he say that who amended it and why? Alan Powell says, also Azad question was to highlight P.A.M achievements. It wasn't meant to speak about everyone. Bobby Jones says, again, questions for Azad. Who is the father of independence? That debate still goes on, and if he was to be elected and maybe shot to be prime minister, would he take the country republic, and why? Alan Powell, P.A.M could have advocated for it under Team Unity as the biggest partner. The independence of SKN wasn't a direct result of any political movement in St. Kitts and Nevis. Independence was a result of England's weaning herself off her colonies. The process began under Bratcher and continued. And as we're ending on that point, in terms of the comment, you mentioned that there was no draft constitution prior to P.A.M, but I would have heard from someone older who would have suggested that Bratcher did presented a constitution, but it was rejected because I guess it didn't align with what he stood for at that time, and something along the lines that eventually Lee Moore, and I don't remember the exact history behind it, but it was said that he presented one that was rejected. That is something that is up for debate. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I know that Sam Condor and others have spoken about a green paper that was presented, a green paper. I don't know if this is the same green paper that you speak of. In relation to the person who said that, yes, it was England waning off their colonies, we have to understand, right, that St. Kitts and Nevis was one of the first countries to receive statehood, but one of the last countries in the OECS, if not the last, to receive independence. And so, obviously, there was some sort of delay as it relates to coming to independent St. Kitts and Nevis. There was turbulent waters. Bradshaw wanted it to be St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla. We know the contention between St. Kitts and Anguilla at the time. We know the contention between Nevis and the Labour-led administration then. And so it was a contentious time, and perhaps that would have added to some of the delay. We look at the fact that in 1966, after Robert Bradshaw said that all those persons who are elected would have a seat at the table when it comes to the consultation in England, in London, P.A.M was not given a seat at the table. At the time, P.A.M had seats in Anguilla and Nevis. In fact, before P.A.M won in St. Kitts, it had 1 seat in Nevis and Anguilla. And so those persons were excluded from the Constitutional Conference in the 1960s in London. And so there was some level of exclusion. You understand? And so that wasn't the same when it came to the People's Action Movement in the 1980s. The Labour Party was given an opportunity to come to London and have discussion. In fact, those who were there said that at one point in time, the Labour opposition walked out and almost disrupted the meeting.
Okay. No, we are really on the end of time, but I'm going to ask you this last question, and then you could answer within
the Republic. I want to talk about the Republic. Yes.
Well, that is exactly where I was going to go, because I was going to ask you,
yes.
After 42 years of independence, so you can respond to that and then, make your wrap up. What says you in relation to taking us now to the next step of independence to become a republic and not have to pay allegiance to King Charles, his heirs, and his successors?
Yes, I am in support of St. Kitts and Nevis becoming a republic. I think it is by time that our head of state is one of us, someone from the soil, someone who is abreast of our realities, our struggles, and, is in the same, is one of us. I think that in itself speaks to a full round independence. You go to the court setting and you do the oath, and you swear an oath to basically an entity outside of St. Kitts and Nevis. We don't get much. We are part of the Commonwealth. We're independent. There's not much assistance from Britain at this point in time, and so it is not in our own. We're not going to lose anything if we become a republic. In fact, when we look at self-governance, I think it gives us more pride to know that, we are loyal to our state, and we, with God as well, and not having to swear allegiance to someone who sits in England. I think that is another proud step, but that has to be one of discussion as well. That is my opinion. But if I am elected as a leader in this country, it has to be something that we bring to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and see how they feel about it. Because ultimately, it is a decision that would affect all of us.
Well, Mr. Gumbs, I really want to thank you very much for being here with us. 2 hours have slipped away, and we feel like we still could go another 2 hours, it seems. And I must say, based on the comments and feedback and questions and participation, that you are well received. And so I'm hopeful that you will be open to come back on the platform to continue, because I think even based on, our closing, I've seen comments that are coming in that, really warrant discussion, and they're coming in based on things that personally I would have wanted to get into as well. Like this one, for example, he says this person seemingly came in a bit late on the program. He says, 2 factors overlooked in this debate: the Black Power movement and how it pushed the independence of these islands, and 2, the neo-colonialist movement in SKN that did not and does not want to see us prosper. And so, this takes us back into some of the historical context and so on. And I know if we're supposed to go into this, it's going to take us another, so I'm saying we definitely have to come back and address some of these issues. And we really want to appreciate you taking your time out on a Friday evening. You could have been doing, so many other things. And you did say you had a long day. So we're really appreciative of you. And it seems as if that the followers and the folks who are following us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch TV, they are really very much paying keen attention to what you guys are saying. Bankie and all the other independent candidates, people are really looking forward to you guys, and also the fact that you guys are pretty much the younger generation, so to speak. People are looking forward to the fresh ideas and the innovation and things like that. So, Bankie, I'm going to give you your opportunity as well to give your closing remarks, and then, we can call it a wonderful evening. And Mr. Gumbs, feel free to, set up for the next interview and next opportunity for us to have a conversation with you on Real Entertainment Network. Bankie, your mic is muted.
Yes, sir. I just want to thank all the callers and all those who made the comment and the contribution to the show. And foremost, want to thank our guest, Azard Gumbs. Seeing him earlier today. It was very good seeing him as usual, very bright and genuine gentleman, and have a great future ahead of himself, and well spoken, and appreciate he come on this podcast. Even though sometimes, I talk for myself, I say nothing is a hard question. Once you put up yourself to public office, you should be able to take any question and see it as a normal question, and don't take nothing personal. And we should not get personal. You're going to always have different views, and we're always not going to have, but at the same time, don't take it that personal. You understand? So I appreciate Cody for calling in and all those who share their views. And Azad, you're welcome to come on this podcast anytime, or let your party representative, the podcast is open. We're not affiliated with any party in a sense, or we're not bringing this person. It's just to hear the views. The job of anyone putting themselves to public office is to come to any medium there is to get their word out and to face the general public and for them to ask a question. And I was going to say, hats off to you, and you hold your own, and I respect that, and appreciate you for coming on, and definitely looking forward for talking to you, reasoning with you next in the near future.
Thank you so much. I want to say thank you for the invitation. I do. This was a very, it has been a long day for me. This interview has been a very good eye-opener to the questions that persons have. I must say I've been on different panels, but you two as hosts and asking questions is as good as any, if not better, in terms of the questions and keeping it, yes, Yes. And so I do look forward to discuss in the future other issues as they face our beloved country of St. Kitts and Nevis, because St. Kitts and Nevis is dear to my heart. I see no other place as home. In fact, constituency number 4 is dear to my heart, to the point that I have land in constituency 4, and it's my intention to serve the people of constituency number 4 as the next member of parliament in the not too distant future when the next general election is called.
So let me tell you before you go on, can you give a message to your leader, Ms. Shani Gray? She is welcome to come and the podium when she have any time within next month, whichever is appropriate for her. Ain't no rush. But all right, appreciate that.
Certainly, I'll let her know.
And as one of the last comment on the platform was saying, we want you back, so come back, Azad. So, people, we want to thank you for taking your time out. Real Entertainment Network, we want to thank you, the team. It's a collaborative effort. We want to encourage folks to be tuning in next week, Tuesday. I think we're going to go back to the regular. So we'll have another edition of the topics on Tuesday. And then on Friday, we go back to our regular everything agriculture on a Friday evening. Thank you guys. Thank everybody for your time and your effort. And we look forward to having you here on Real Entertainment Network for another edition. Love you. Guidance, everybody.
I be having conversations with myself cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. You tried to convince me it was all in my head, and I felt like it's not you, it's me instead. I wanted to rock with you.